The Exo 1 Plus has been out for roughly a year now, and there's been a huge amount of interest following with it, and a bunch of little bit of manufacturing issues along the way too that you probably already know about, and I'm going to assume this isn't your first video. This is my unique perspective with some of my first impressions of this tent. This isn't my tent. I was a viewer of the channel, let me borrow it. Thank you, Alex, really appreciate it. But I've taken it out on a couple nights so far and I'm kind of getting a little idea of what the tent's about. I found a couple issues myself with the tent that I haven't already want to discuss before. So let's jump into some of those and I'll let you guys know what my first impressions are of the tent. So one of the bigger things I've had an issue with the tent is that it's not a very long tent. It is extremely wide width-wise. This is a 1+ person tent, so I didn't really assume that there'd be any issues for the length of the tent. Now, after looking on Durston's website, it says that it's only made up for people up to 6'2", which I think is potentially even a stretch in itself, but this tent is very short. I think just due to the angles that the tent come at, regardless of how I have my sleeping pad set up and where I am, my head and feet are going to be touching on both ends, especially with a thicker quilt. It is extremely wide everywhere, but I just kind of wish it was, instead of the emphasis being put on how much width there is for interior storage inside, I wish it just stretched out a little bit longer, just a few extra inches. My first proper night in the tent, it was extremely wet. I went to the wettest place in North America. Make sure to subscribe to see that video. And my foot box was completely drenched. My foot box was jammed up against the wall, and then unfortunately due to the wind, the tent was flexing quite a bit, and then the outside layer was smacking against the inside layer what my foot was touching against, causing my down to lose all of its loft. Which brings me into the next point, is that the moisture management of the tent isn't quite up to what I was expecting out of it. Now, I don't know where it came from, but somehow I got a little puddle inside the tent. I don't know if that's just from the excess of moisture coming in. The outside fly was touching the inner just from the wind that the tent was dealing with. But there was a puddle in the tent in the morning. And that is not great, especially if you're going to be trying to do some sort of multi-day outing. Unfortunately, my quilt had a little bit of golden retriever energy and thought it would be a good time to jump on the puddle. Yeah, not great. The corny jokes. Now, I believe part of the issue with the condensation is that the panels on the tent are extremely large. When you get a gust of wind come in, the no-see-um and the tent will be touching each other. And what my guess is the water is hitting this and this pulling coming down throughout the night. So whenever there's a large gust, it's going to push on the panel and it's going to touch the no-see-um, and then the water's going to come down. Just out of curiosity, I left both vents open to see what happened, and that wasn't where the water was coming through. You could see on one end where there's a little bit of a spray coming on it, but then on the opposite end there wasn't any spray coming in, so the water's not coming in through that area. Again, also with the inner, one thing I found is that the little bit of a wall that's built up along it doesn't act very well as a windbreak. So if you get big gusts of wind, I find the wind comes from underneath the tent and blows in. I was getting gusted out with wind pretty hard, and it was keeping me pretty chilly. So what I believe from a lot of the wind, the moisture, all these issues I'm having with the tent is that a lot of it comes from the flex and the poles. The poles themselves aren't very stiff. You see just a little pinky touch. When they're not guyed out, there is a tremendous amount of flex in them. So when that happens, now the whole fabric is loose, and it really doesn't take much to make them flex. This is an absolutely giant panel right here, and so when it catches onto wind, you have a giant sail pushing against you. You can see here as this end of the tent's guyed out, I'm really having to push on it just to get it to go. Of course, once you have all 8 guy lines along the poles set up, the tent is going to be way more solid than this even, because you have all those sides helping each other out. It's just important, remember, be mindful that you need to guide this out if there is any wind, or you're just gonna have a rough night. So something that I found that's a little finicky is that if you want to set up your trekking pole underneath here for the additional support, you just gotta be mindful of the order when you do it, because once you have everything staked out and then you want to try setting it in, it's just not going to go up very well. It's kind of hard to fit a trekking pole, aim it up into the little cup that's up the top there. You could rip down the fly and come up and over from the inside. You could do it that way as an option. It'd be a little more time consuming, but if you're really trying to lock this thing down and you want to do that, just know that you want everything loose, and so you can reach underneath there and kind of work around, get everything set up correctly. I do love how much space there is under the vestibule in this area here. You store your pack and a bunch of other things, and just keep it out of the weather. And if you're someone like me that spreads out quite a bit with all your gear, you have lots of space, you can toss it in here, plus toss it on the inside of the tent. It is kind of like a double-edged sword since it's so wide. I do wish it was a little shorter, like I said, but since it's so wide, I have so much room to store my stuff in the inside. It makes me feel a little more comfortable bringing my camera gear inside here. As long as it's not heavy rain and there's gonna be a little puddle in there, then that's kind of terrifying for my camera. I like the internal pockets too. I really miss having pockets when coming from my Xped Pro 2 Plus. There's not much for pockets inside of that, but having the extra space in here, I can toss my puffy jacket over top, and then you got the other one off to the side where you can put your bear spray and whatever else you want in there throughout the night. Even with my puffy jacket up here, toss some more things up and top of this upper shelf. A way of setting up the tent that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is that you could essentially have a freestanding tarp at the shelter, and you just ditch the inner to it, and then you have this shelter that has a huge amount of area where you could sit inside there and take out your binoculars and do a little spotting out the whole landscape around you. And you can be fully enclosed behind you. You don't have to worry about wind coming and bringing rain from underneath. It would be a very lightweight freestanding tarp option, which I don't really know what else you could buy even on the market that's a freestanding tarp. Something you just want to quickly throw up so you can have a little bit of shelter from a quick raindrop while you're just sitting around for a while. There's a lot of space in there. You could fit 3 dudes in there. It'd be a little snug, but 2 large guys could sit in there comfortably, and you'll be able to have a nice covered area they can hang out underneath. As you can see, both ends of the fly roll back, so that gives you a huge amount of space that you can hang out underneath here. So the big elephant in the room when it comes to the X-Dome is the pulse and all the issues that have happened over the last year with them. At the time of recording this, I believe with the timeline it has been, the first initial batch had some glue issues, and then Durston worked with Easton to totally revamp how they glued their poles together. And then there was a continued issue with the brow pole with the aluminum insert on the inside of it coming loose and coming undone. And now I believe that the new poles are ditching the aluminum insert altogether. Now they're going for a carbon fiber insert on the carbon fiber poles. Also coming up next month, you'll be able to purchase this tent with DAC aluminum poles. This was in the March 2025 batch. There's been lots of different updates with the tent as it's been coming out. This tent's about 2.5 weeks worth of use, and there's been no issues with the poles. I can see also with the center pole right here with the center brow pole, how it sits when we have to kind of re-thread it through. If you're to push on it really hard, I could see how someone could jam it through and cause the aluminum to slip within the carbon struts. If you're cold and it's rainy out and you're just trying to get the tent set up quickly, you have to kind of take your time as you're setting it up. It just seems like a weak point as you're trying to slide everything in together. I know seems like I've been ripping on it, but I just wanted to address some issues that you probably haven't heard before. And this is an absolutely amazing tent. Like, I can see this being the most popular tent period in the future. Well, probably the 2-person version of this, just because people typically like 2-person versions over 1-person version tents. The fly first pitch, how storm worthy it is, how lightweight it is, and honestly the cost of it all, especially when you start looking at the cost with the new DAC poles coming up. The tent material that it's made out of, this is just gonna be a phenomenal tent that everyone's gonna love. So this is going to be the tent in the future. And the cool thing is too with buying a Durston thing, by the time you watch this video, chances are there's going to be an update made to the tent addressing some of the issues I brought up. Or, you'll find it potentially just won't be an issue for you. Potentially like the sizing issue, for example. This tent's definitely the cat's meow, or the intruding dog, as we saw earlier. This is also just a first impressions video, like I said, so it's not in the budget right now, but in the future, I think I'd like to pick up the X-Dome 2. Maybe once the YouTube channel starts taking off a bit more, it'll be in the budget and I'll be able to pick up the X-Dome 2 and I'll be able to try that one out more extensively. But just in the short term, this has been a very amazing tent and I'm pretty stoked on it. One of the things I love about the tent is just all the modularity. Like, you can do the Stargazer mode, or you can do the canopy only mode to give you essentially a freestanding tarp, like I said. That's just such a cool feature. You can really lock it down with your trekking poles. Like, I don't know how many other freestanding tents where you can introduce your trekking poles as a structure feature. And my experience in primarily using trekking pole tents over the last few years is that that's the way to go to have them. It's way more storm worthy than freestanding tents. You just gotta think about how sturdy a trekking pole is versus a little tiny tent pole. There's less flappy, less flex, just everything's better overall in my opinion. So the fact that you can have that in a freestanding tent is phenomenal. Yeah, you can tell I'm stoked on it. You guys have seen all the other videos of it. I just thought I'd bring up some of the issues I found with the tent personally. If you want to see the tent in use in the field, I got a couple of videos over my Patreon already. You can go check those ones out. A little first early access. One of them is hiking in the wettest place in North America. It is so wet out. And the other one is I attempted to hike with a 100-pound backpack. Both those videos are pretty hectic. You have to go check it out how I went over there. They both had their big ups and down moments to it. So yeah, those are really fun adventures. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. Got a lot of videos coming up in the future here. Been stoked with the channel. It's been really fun making these videos. Got this video here with the XMID Pro 2 Plus, my review from a year ago. You can go check out and see how the other Thurston tent performs. You haven't seen that one yet. We'll see you guys over there.